Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perfect RIA podcast. I am your host, Matthew Jarvis, and today's What Works Wednesday, we have the legendary Aaron Walker. I say legendary because even though you may have never heard of Aaron, I was only introduced to him, Aaron, probably last year by John Lee Dumas. Micah and I have personally coached with Aaron one-on-one for about 6 months, and Aaron, boy, you bloodied our jaws more than one time. So glad to have you on the show today.
Man, thanks for having me. I've been really looking forward to this, and it's an honor to be your guest.
I love it. I love it. Well, Aaron, for those listeners who by some means don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself, about ISI, about your masterminds, all that good stuff.
Yeah, well, thank you. I live in Nashville, Tennessee, 62 years. I don't want to hear any comments from you, Jarvis, about the Southern drawl. So I know there's a Southern drawl there. Started really early in my career, 43 years this year. I've been an entrepreneur, started my first business when I was 18. Had some good fortune. God really blessed our company, and we sold it to a Fortune 500 when I was 27. I woke up on a Monday morning with nothing to do, and I said, man, this is pretty cool. You go from broker and a convict to being able to retire at 27. It doesn't get any better than that. That was great, Jarvis, for about 18 months.
Yeah.
And then I gained 50 pounds. I was taking a nap in the middle of the day, and Robin came to me one day. She goes, this is not what I signed up for. And I said, so what do you want me to do? She goes, get a job, start another company. I don't care. So I went back and bought the retail outlet that I started with when I was 13 years old. We grew it 4 times the size that it was when I took it over. It took us about 10 years. And then another kind of valley moment. I was 40 years old, headed to the office. Things were really good, working 3 days a week. My partner working the other 3 days. And a beautiful home, place on the beach. We had all the toys. And I was like, man, life doesn't get any better than this, until a guy named Enrique decided to cross the street, catch a local bus, didn't look my way. And I ran over and killed a pedestrian August 1st, 2001. And the reason I even bring this up is because it was the paradigm shift for me. It was a place in my life where I really had to evaluate what was going on. Like, it wasn't just about making money. It was about a level of significance that was lacking in my life. Sold the business, took about 5 years off, didn't do anything. And again, gained 50 pounds, getting in the bed in the middle of the day. And Robin goes, here we go again. This is the second time. This is your final warning. And I'm like, okay. So I go back in business, work about 7 or 8 years. And then 12 years ago, I retired. I went to my mastermind group, and Dan Miller and Dave Ramsey and some of those guys that I've been meeting with for decades said, what are you going to do now? And I said, I'm going to go down to the Caribbean, buy one of those little tiki huts, and I'm probably going to rock myself into an oblivion. And Dan Miller, I thought I was saying something kind of comical. I thought I'd get a laugh out of it. He leaned over the table and he pointed that short little stubby finger in my face. And he said, that's the most selfish thing I've ever heard you say. And I'm like, what are you saying? I've been working since I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 50 now. I'm ready to quit. He said, you need to coach and you need to teach others. And I said, I don't want any part of coaching. Like, I don't want anything to do with that. Dave Ramsey said, come and do entree leadership. I'll gift it to you. I'm like, well, that's cool. It's a $10,000 gift. Sign me up. So I went. Dan said, come to the sanctuary and do Innovate, another coaching program. And I went, and that night I was on my way home. We all live here in Nashville. We all been friends for decades, since the early 90s. Dan texted me and he said, did you see the people at your table leaning in, listening while you were talking? And I said, well, I'm a decent storyteller. He said, no. He said, you've got something to say. He said, you and Robin have been married over 30 years. You've owned 12 businesses to this point. Wow. He said, I really think you should coach. And so I went home, talked to Robin about it. She agreed. And Jarvis, I turned around 3 times, 9 years passed, and we have 150 members in 15 groups. We're in 4 different countries now around the world, helping people grow personally, professionally, and spiritually. So I'm having more fun today than I've ever had in my entire career.
Oh man, Aaron, I love that story. And there's so many ways we could go with this. And by the way, Aaron, remind me the name of your book. I apologize, the name slipped my mind, but it talks a lot about your View from the Top.
View from the Top.
Yep, I read that when we first met. It goes into a lot of detail on these stories that you kind of just went over quickly for the sake of time. Highly recommend that book, View from the Top. Talk a lot about these different major turning points in your life that I think for a lot of people could have been mean, that could have been the point where you say, "God, I'm done. I just watched someone die in front of me. Like I'm just done, right? Or I've sold these businesses for all this money. I'm just done." And so I love how you're able to find purpose, find the next step, and that's a lot of what your coaching is, Aaron. Is like helping
Yeah.
predominantly men. Like, well, all right, what is my bigger purpose?
Yeah. You know what happened to me years ago? I was at the Curb Center in Nashville at a concert, and Robin and I were enjoying Mercy Me. It's a
Oh
group
yeah,
that was playing. And Dave Ramsey and I have been friends since the early 90s. Dave was sitting a few rows ahead of me. I didn't even see him, I didn't even know he was there. And when he got up, he walked by me, he went to the concession stand, and he came back and he said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about joining my mastermind group." And I said, "I don't even know what a mastermind group is." And he said, "Just come to my office, next Wednesday morning, 7 o'clock. I'll introduce you to the guys that we've invited." So I came home and I told Robin, I said, "I don't want to go." She said, "Why?" And I said, "You know how Dave is. He's going to be all up in my face. He's going to be asking me hard questions. He's going to find out that we've got debt. He's going to know that you and I argue occasionally and my kids are not perfect. And I just know he's going to be all up in my face." And she said, "Why don't you go try it?" So Jarvis, I went and I sat in on a meeting, and it was like, okay, this is cool. Next Wednesday, same thing, week after week, month after month. And after about the third month, guys started talking about issues with their spouse, started talking about issues with their children and cash flow problems. And I get this big grin on my face. I go out and I get in the car and I drive home, and I walk in the house, and Robin goes, "What are you smiling about?"
yeah.
I said, "Robin, they're more screwed up than I am." I said, "I have found my people." And she said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "It's the most real thing I've ever been involved in." She said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, they've let their veil down. They've let that facade down." And what I learned over the years is that where real strength begins is at the intersection of vulnerability and transparency. And when we can get into a safe environment, Jarvis, and really let our guard down. Now, don't go do this in front of a bunch of people you don't know. That's not what I'm saying at all. But when you meet with people week after week, month after month, it gives you the ability to subject yourself to their scrutiny. Then you can go in and they know exactly who you are. They can help you make decisions. I had breakfast with a guy I know recently here in Hendersonville, Tennessee. And I said, "Robin and I are thinking about buying a condo." I said, "Down in South Florida." I said, "Do you think that'd be a good idea?" And he thought for about a nanosecond. He said, "Yeah, Big A, I think that'd be a great idea." And I said, "Do you think I can afford it?" And he thought for a minute, and he goes, "Yeah, I'm sure you could. You've owned all these businesses." And I said, "Do you think Robin would like it?" He said, "Well, yeah, I guess so." And I said, "Well, I want to be kind of candid and open with you." He goes, "Yeah, okay." I said, "First of all, you don't know Robin. You don't know my kids. You
Mm,
don't know my propensity. You don't know if I'm a creator, developer, or a maintainer, manager. You don't know anything about my aspirations. And you sure don't know anything about my finances. So the truth is, you can't really help me because you don't really know me."
yeah.
And he goes, "Now that you bring that up, that's right." See, what we do is we give blanket information to people every single
Yep.
day, and they don't have the data. They don't have the wherewithal to help you because they don't know everything about you. See, people in my mastermind can answer all those questions. They know my family intimately. They know my finances. They know exactly what it is that I can, should, and shouldn't do. And so these are the people that I elect to surround myself to help me make good decisions.
Boy, Aaron, couple things come to mind, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but one thing, you're not sitting around with these guys and complaining, right? This isn't like let's drink beers and complain about what's going on. And I just want to kind of highlight. I know you're not, but I'm just kind of highlight that this isn't. I think some people mistake that. They think, well, let me just sit around and complain about my wife, complain about my job, complain about my kids.
No.
That's not what this is about. All you're saying, hey, I'm truly struggling with whatever this thing is, and I need some help. I need some wisdom. I need some guidance. Has anyone else struggled with this as well? Is that correct,
Yeah,
Aaron?
well, here's the thing. We all go through struggles. We all go through
Yeah.
trials and temptations, and we all have mountaintop experiences. We all go through the valley, right? We need
Yeah.
people to walk alongside us, people that have been there before, people that have done that. And so this is just being genuine and real, not complaining. I hate naysayers. I don't
Yeah.
want to be around naysayers, negative people. That's not what I'm talking about at all. It's being real. It's saying, I've got this challenge and I don't know how to handle it. Maybe you've got a promiscuous child. Maybe you've got a wife that won't align with the core values that
Sure.
you've established for your family, like real things that we deal with each and every day because we all deal with these issues. But when you can get the general consensus of the multitude, when you can get 8 or 10 people around a certain topic, right? They're not interested in gaining or losing. They're interested in helping you solve the problem. I can't even begin to tell you. Jarvis, you're just like me. You get out of the shower, you got 3 new ideas, right? It's like, hey, I got this new business thing. I'm going to go do this thing. But when you get around a group of people like Micah and others that know you well, or you come to me and you say, hey, I'm going to do this. I said, wait a minute. You said you were going to do this 6 months ago. This was your vision. These are the things that you said you wanted to do. How is this thing going to help you accomplish that? And you go, man, you're right. I'm like, okay, let's stay true to the task. See, if you don't have other people that you're sharing these things with, everybody's going to say you're the greatest, you're a genius, right? You've got this new ideas, and they're really doing you more harm than good. What we need is people that really love us, that care about us, that their core values align with yours. They can lock arms with you. They can walk in lockstep. They can hear you week after week, month after month, and year after year. And they know then they've been on the journey with you. Then they can celebrate with you. They can hold you accountable to the things that you want to get accomplished. But you can't do that in a community where they don't know you.
Yeah, and so I guess I just want to highlight for our listeners, again, this is a community that you've carefully built, and your company helps other men build these communities. This isn't just sitting around with 10 guys you randomly met at a conference at the table. These are people that you're really going deep with. It took me, Mike and I have a version of the kind of masterminds you do that he and I and a couple of our peers, and it took me, this is now like year 6 I've been working on building this. It takes time and effort to find the people to build that level of trust, and then to have the, maybe we'll call it courage to go the next level deep. Mike and I get together all the time, and it's like, all right, where are we going now this time? Like, what's the level we haven't gone to yet? And those are hard discussions, Aaron, to have.
You know, if you really know someone, you know where they need help. You know what their blind spots are, right? We all want our superpowers encouraged, but none of us want our blind spot pointed out or the kryptonite that's in our life. And I've seen you and Micah go at it, right? We'll be in these meetings and you'll say, hey, forgive me for going here. And it's always, no, go ahead. You've got full permission. Mm-hmm. See, you have allowed them. You have subjected yourself under their authority. You have subjected yourself hook, line, and sinker, everything about you. And oftentimes one of you will change the other one's mind. And oftentimes you'll say, hey, I didn't even see that. I didn't even know to know that. And see, that's the value of being in these groups, is the perspective. We did a construction project at my house recently. We had the engineer, the general contractor, the subcontractor. They were trying to make this thing work, and they couldn't. No matter how hard we tried, they couldn't make this thing fit. 2 weeks later, I was on the back patio on a coaching call, and I looked up at it and solved it immediately. And the reason I did, we were looking at it from the wrong perspective. See, that's exactly what happens in mastermind groups. We look at things from the wrong perspective because we only have one filter. We only have one life experience. You can only see it one way. If you tried, you can't see it a different way, right? We don't have the capability. But when you're around people and you know their heart, you know that their interest in you is to help you, to give you the resources, the ideas, the accountability, you know they're not gaining anything as a result of what they're telling you, then they're going to tell you the truth. And that's when we really excel. The blind spots is always what kills us. And we never are around people long enough for them to understand what your blind spots are. I was at church several months ago, and I had told this guy that I'd been all over South America fishing. And one of my buddies that had been meeting with me for years and years heard me tell that. And he came up to me and he said, hey, I want to have lunch with you tomorrow. And I said, sure. So we went to lunch. Wasn't nothing uncommon. We went to lunch together all the time. And he said, I heard you tell that guy at church you've been all over South America fishing. I said, I have. He said, no, you hadn't. You've been down there twice. And I said, well, what are you saying? He's saying, you said that so you'd look like a big shot.
Sure.
And man, it pissed me off, Jarvis. I'm just telling you, it did. But he had me. And I was like, yeah, you're right. See, he wouldn't have known to pick up on that had I not been meeting with him for decades.
Yeah, but he also wasn't saying it. He wasn't necessarily trying to bust your chops, right? He was
trying to make
he wasn't going to let off, right? Because he loved you, but he was making you aware that, wait a second, you need to get your pride's a little out of control here.
You need to be accurate.
Yeah.
Right? And whatever you tell people, that way they can know they can count on you. Because next time, if you embellish the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, it's like, how's he going to know to believe you? He said, you should have said, I've been to South America twice.
Yeah.
Right? That would have been an accurate statement. And see, what I want is to be accurate because my pride and ego can get out of control.
Sure.
I want people to think, oh, he's a big deal. And I have to constantly stay on top of that, right? Because I don't want my ego to go out of control. I don't want that pride to raise up and, show its ugly head, because it does oftentimes. And that people are just not welcoming of that, right? And I want to be that guy in the room that when I say something, it's like, that's accurate.
I got to tell a quick funny story about you, Aaron, and spotting blind spots. The very first call that you and I and Micah had together, we were introduced to you by John Lee Dumas, who's just a brilliant podcaster, brilliant entrepreneur. We're having a call with you. You told us a lot of things during that call, but one of the things you said during the call was, you said, "Hey, gentlemen, if either of your wives called, Micah and I were on, if your wife called, would you hang up from this call with me and would you answer her call?" And Micah and I both said, "Well, no, because we're on this call with you. We made this commitment to you." And you told us, you said, "You know what, gentlemen, if my wife called, I'm going to hang up this call because she's my first priority." And I'm putting words in your mouth here. But
Sure.
if your wife's not your first priority, I guess we need to have a different discussion. And it was one of the few times, Aaron, where I've seen anybody ring Micah's bell. And he stewed on that for months. He was angry about that. I'm not picking on Micah because he'll listen to this episode. He said, "No, my family's my top priority." But it was that blind spot that you're able to point out. And he and I talked about that for months before we engaged you in coaching. And we needed someone like you to say, "Guys, hey, I know you think you're a big deal and you're doing a lot of things right, but right hook, there's this thing you're missing." And you need somebody that you have confidence in and say, "Hey, you're missing this thing. You need to put yourself in check and take care of this."
Jarvis, let me tell you how come that's so important to me. Because years ago, I came home with a pocket full of money to a house full of strangers. And I almost lost my family as a result of not making myself available to my family.
Yeah.
You just said something really important. You said, yeah, we said that our families are most important, but it's obvious they're not most important because we would stay on this call, right? That was priority. Now, Robin doesn't have a habit of interrupting me during an interview. Like if it's important, like I'm hanging up this call, even on this interview.
Yes.
And the reason is because she is most important. I was on a meeting at our church several years ago, and I was interim doing a staff position there between a couple of companies that I had sold. And my phone rang and I looked down, it was Robin. I walked out and I walked back in after about 10 minutes. And our pastor said, "Hey, couldn't have waited?" I said, "No, that was Robin, and she's way more important than you." And I think he wished he had felt that way at the time. He later did, right?
Yeah.
It's just that we've got to let our actions speak, not just our words. And when we say things audibly, we need to be able to back them up in principle. And so our families are most important, right? And what Robin said to me when I came home with that pocket full of money, she said, "Hey, I'm grateful for all you're doing, but I'm raising our kids by myself." And I didn't sign up for that either.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got to put boundaries up. I've got to show them that they're important, right? And it almost cost me my marriage. And that's why today it's very important to me that we put our family in the right priority.
All right, Aaron, I love it. We could spend it and have spent together hours talking about this, but I want to make sure that we give really clear action items for our listeners. Also want to make sure how they can learn more about the masterminds that you facilitate with Iron Sharpens Iron. It's very difficult, I think, to form these masterminds on your own. Not impossible by any means, very difficult. And I think the service that you're providing, helping people find these masterminds is critical. So talk to us a little about this, about some action items, things that people can implement from this episode.
Yeah, I would just simply ask you, who's helping you make decisions? Just do a little evaluation of yourself, and who are your 2 a.m. friends? Who are the people that you can call on at any moment and say, "Hey, I'm really making a difficult decision." See, because a lot of people listen to this interview say, "I'm good." Well, you may be good now, but you may not be good later. And the time that you need to be developing these mastermind friends is now, when you don't really need them, right? And then the resources that they can give you, the insight, the perspective. The most wealthy people on the planet have mastermind groups, right? That they surround themselves with these trusted advisors, non-biased trusted advisors on a regular basis, so they can call on. If you want to go fast, right, go by yourself. If you want to go far, right, go with a tribe. And that's what we've created. Viewfromthetop.com is the place that you can go to find out more. We have a application there that you can fill out. And if it's something that is of interest to you, you'd like to learn more, fill out the application. You're under no obligation whatsoever. We would love to have an opportunity to talk to you. We handpick these people that are in the groups, and we would love an opportunity to talk to you as well. You know, first time in 4 years, we're opening 3 new groups. We haven't opened a group in 4 years, but we're right now opening 3 new groups. And if that sounds like something of interest to you, reach out to me, viewfromthetop.com.
Yeah, I guess I love that, Aaron. Thanks for sharing that. I would also add, if you haven't read Aaron's book, View from the Top, find it. It's on Amazon. Very powerful read. I read a ton of books, but this has really made it my short list of books I go back to and look at again and again. I love that you've balanced your business success with being successful in your family life as well. And I think a lot of people, it's easy to pay lip service to that, but it's much more difficult to do it in reality. So I appreciate the stories and the transparency that you offer in that book. You're very transparent. You share a lot of hard stories there that
Mm.
most people wouldn't have the confidence and courage to share.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. The only way I feel like I can help you is to be vulnerable and transparent, right? That's what we've built the model of our mastermind on. We have strong core values, and I'd like to tell you what those are, if in case you align with that. Relationships matter most. That's been the case in all the businesses that I've owned over the past 43 years. I want to make it amazing. Everything that we do, we try to make it as amazing as we can. No excuses. Like, don't call me and give me an excuse. I want you to own your stuff, right? Whatever it is. Everything is figure outable. I
Hmm.
don't know what it is for you right now today, but you get enough eyes on it, you get enough accountability, we'll figure it out. And then truth before opinion. I'm Christ follower, Christian by faith. And so for us, God's word is the truth. And so we base our filter using God's word. So truth before opinion. If
Love it.
those values align with you, reach out. I would love to have another conversation with you.
Perfect. Well, Aaron, really appreciate your time today. Appreciate the insight that you've shared. All the time that we spent in coaching together. Really learned a lot, made a big impact on my life. Aaron, any parting thoughts for our listeners before we go?
Yeah, I just want to encourage you not to be afraid. There's a lot of fear out there today. And I always say fear missing an opportunity more than you fear failure. And if you develop a mindset of can do, my mom had a little saying when I was a kid, can't, couldn't do it, but could did it all. So if you develop that mindset along with fear missing an opportunity more than you fear failure, you'll have a hugely successful and significant life.
I love it. I love it. Aaron, thank you again for your time. And for everyone listening, be sure to check out View from the Top, both the book and the website. And until next time, happy planning.